Welcome to EI Cafe with Azim, in which he reflects on key aspects of life and business through the lens of emotional intelligence. You will learn how emotional intelligence can be used for your success in both personal and professional lives. The podcasts cover topics on leadership, collaboration, culture, building a positive mindset, and even raising kids. You will hear key life lessons and tips from the most prominent personalities, business leaders, entrepreneurs, EI practitioners, and executive coaches from around the world. So sit back, relax with a cup of coffee as we get into today's show, EI Cafe with Azim.
Level sound bites or phrases that do not really tell you what to do. It's very hard to answer. That is a lack of empathy, is that we don't care enough about other people, about nature, about our planet. And that's a very fundamental level where empathy and strategy is so important, because in strategy you define what the future of your organization is, and it is about the interaction of your organization with the broader environment, purchasing and so on. They're silos, they barely speak with each other, or only on a transactional basis where like a product or the process goes from one stage to another and from one department to another. What I try to do with my participative approach is bring these people together in a room or virtually in a Zoom conversation like we're having now, and have them talk about their organization from their perspectives. And that creates an understanding. Yes, I think because competitors, you need them. And I think this is one of the misconceptions about strategy, is that this is about beating the competition. Maybe one of the other pitfalls is maybe an unexpected one, is because there's this whole idea nowadays that strategy should be agile. The biggest pitfall is that you go too far in that, because then you throw away the baby with the bathwater, because the whole idea of strategy is give you continuity, give you direction for a while, give you stability in a changing environment. Yeah, because you're very right. It starts with leaders. I would always say, like, if leaders, the most important, so that's probably, let's say, the top leaders, if they are not open to the kind of approach that I've just described in the past minutes, then forget it. Go and move somewhere else. Find another company to work for. Don't make it too complicated. Just start. Strategy is just a word, I think, for the broader thinking and thinking of the big picture. It's not more than that.
Strategies are vital to organizations as they provide a clear roadmap for achieving goals and navigating challenges. Effective strategies align resources and efforts, ensuring everyone works towards common objectives. The impact of well-crafted strategies include improved decision-making, enhanced organizational efficiency, competitive advantage, and a long-term sustainability. Greetings for you from Colombo, Sri Lanka. This is EI Cafe with Azim, Season 11, and I'm your host Azim Sahira, Human Capital Specialist, Lego Serious Play Facilitator, ICF Certified, PCC Level Coach, an Emotional Intelligence and Emotional Culture Practitioner. I'm one of the lead facilitators at Luminary Learning Solutions. This weekly show helps you to explore the impact of emotional intelligence on our lives through engaging conversations with industry leaders, innovators, executive coaches, and thought leaders. We aim to inspire and empower you. Today, we are diving into a topic that's crucial for every business leaders and professional: making strategy practical, the role of empathy. We'll explore how to turn strategic plan into actionable steps, and why empathy is so powerful tool in this process. So Joining us and this exceptional guest, Jeroen Kraaijenbrink is an accomplished strategy educator, mentor, author, and a consultant with over 2 decades of academic and industry experience. He empowers people, organizations to design, formulate, and execute their strategies, providing innovative tools for forward-thinking strategy and personal and organizational development. Not to forget, he has written many articles on strategy, sustainability, and leadership, as well as authored 6 books. Strategy consulting, no more bananas. That's what interesting about one. Unlearning the strategy handbook, the 1 hour strategy, and the strategic leadership playbook. Jeroen has a PhD in industrial management, teaches at the University of Amsterdam, and is a co-founder of strategy.inc, and he helped significantly improve strategic planning of many organizations across the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Jeroen Kraaijenbrink, co-founder of Strategy INC. Jeroen, welcome to the cafe.
Yes, Azim, welcome. Thank you for this wonderful introduction.
Right. So, thank you very much. It has been interesting thought process I have gone through while you're having looking at your some of the sharing, and I've joined the platform, the Circle platform, Strategy Circle platform. It was quite interesting. Now, why this topic strategy? I know you know better than me. You're working on it, but I have been working with certain organizations where people always say, "Okay, we do strategy, but um, it's not working for us properly. Every time we have to go with the drawing mode." Now, that's one of the reasons I wanted to really pick up this particular topic with you. And to start off this conversation, let me ask you this. How can business ensure their strategies are practical and implementable in today's dynamic market? Because it's not like more than those days, right? Today is a very volatile, uncertain market. Every time keep changing. Now, can businesses ensure their strategies are practical? What's your thought?
That's not a small question to start with. That's probably my entire career is focused on doing exactly that, making strategy more practical. But in a nutshell, I think there's two main aspects. One is the content aspect. The other is the process aspect. I think if you look at, and that's the content aspect, if you look at what I think one of the big problems in strategy is that it's too high level. That some people would even say, like, if it's detailed, it's not strategic anymore, but it's tactical and operational. And that's a problem, because if it's just high level, if we just have kind of abstract high level sound bites, or phrases that do not really tell you what to do, it's very hard to execute, because what are you going to execute? So the lack of clarity, the lack of granularity, lack of detail, lack of concreteness, I think that's one problem and one of the big reasons why strategy is not so effective. So why there is so much failure, such high failure rates in strategy execution. So if we want to make strategy practical, we have to open up the black box. So that's what I do and thank you for mentioning my books, especially in the strategy handbook, and the tool, the strategy sketch that I developed for this, is opening up the black box so that we really look at the elements, the ingredients of strategy. So that's half of the answer. The other half is the process. Over time, we've managed to kind of separate strategy and execution so thoroughly that it's almost expected that we have so much failure, because we separate it in organizations where at the top we develop, and then sorry for the words, but we throw it over the fence, and then others are supposed to execute it. But also in time is we first develop, we spend a lot of time and energy and often money on analysis and developing our strategic plan. Yeah. And then there is hardly any time, money, effort left for the execution part. So then we kind of rush into execution, and we're surprised that this doesn't work. So it's imbalanced in terms of process. Also not involving people from all over the company. So we need a more participative approach. so that the people that are executed
mm,
also are involved in
mm.
the generation phase.
Yeah.
So a content part and a process part that together make it almost inevitable that there is so much failure and the strategy is not practical.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love the part, the black box, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in that black box, you were saying about lack of clarity, a lot of communication. Now, the the question I want to ask you, who who lacks clarity, who lacks clarity? Because yes, strategy is technically done on the top layer, and then this throw
Mm-hmm.
it out and down. What do you think the clarity? Where is the clarity missing in terms of
Everywhere,
execution? Mm,
everywhere. Because at a high level, it's very easy to develop strategy that's high level. We can make nice sounding phrases like we're going to be top of mind of our customer, or we want to be our strategy is customer intimacy or operational excellence. That's
mm,
all nice. It sounds good, but what does it mean? And what are my experience, and this I pay a lot of effort in creating that clarity, even clarity about an organization's current strategy. So the
mm,
factual strategy that they execute, that they live as an organization. If you ask different people, for instance, what is unique about their product, if you ask different people in the same organization, like who's your most important customer, what are your unique competences, you get different answers.
mm,
And aligning, getting clarity, creating a common shared understanding about the status quo and subsequently about what the future strategy should be, I think
mm,
that's often lacking.
mm.
At all levels,
All right.
including the let's say the top executive level, there
Mm,
is a lack of
mm,
clarity.
mm. You know, I'm curious to ask this. Like, now you have been working so much, and you have been working on this particular industry area for a long time. And if I may ask you, like, I know region to region the factors might change, but in a practical strategical element, what are some of the key factors you think leaders need to really focus with today's context, being relevant to the
Mhm.
market now? What are some of the key contexts leaders need to really focus when they are drawing a strategy for
Mhm.
the organization?
Yeah, which is an interesting question because I don't think the answer is different today than it was 25 years ago or 50 years ago. And the reason I'm saying that is even though the world may be more volatile and certain complex and disruptive and so on than before, the whole idea of strategy, by definition, the origin of the whole business strategy is about dealing with that uncertainty, with that change.
Mm,
So strategy is designed, the whole field of strategy has been created to deal with that fast changing, uncertain, and complex environment. The traditional approach is often to start looking outside, look at the
mm,
trends, the developments, the uncertainties. So there's
mm,
several models, D-Step,
mm,
Pastel, SWOT,
mm,
and so on. I always start the other way around and start looking inside. And I think that's the most important starting point for any organization is look at your organization, look at your people, your processes, your technology. What is it that you have as an organization? What is it that you can do as an organization? What are your competences, your capabilities, the resources that are unique and valuable? Because that's your means, your starting point, and whatever happens in the world around you, that's what you need to do it with. Also, at the personal level, if you would look at your own personal strategy, or I would do so, everything around you is in flux and it's changing and it's uncertain and it's out of
mm,
your control. But your own
mm,
competences, your knowledge, your experience, your background, the network that you have, the people that you know, that's a given. And
mm,
for me, strategy is very much it's not so much the question like, what should we do in order to fit into the developments of the market, but what can we do? How can we creatively use our unique resources and competences in a way that is distinct from what others are doing in a way that customers
mm,
like? And if you look inside, and of course, I'm not naive, and when I work with my clients, you also need to look at the developments around you. But I think your starting point should be look inwards, look at what you're good at, what are you strong at, and how you can leverage and exploit that valuable resources and competences.
mm. Interesting thought. Now, Now, here's the link I want to bring in. Now, you said focus inside what you have already. Right.
Mhm.
Now, in that context, how much of, empathy influence in sort of a strategic component?
Mhm.
Because strategies involve a lot of decisions, isn't it? So, in
Mhm.
terms of making those strategic decisions, how empathy does involve in this whole process?
Yeah, which is a very important question, and I don't know how many answers, but there's different answers, different levels here. I think the fundamental level is, and I've written a post about this some while ago, is and even a newsletter as well. Is I think one of the problems, and I'm not the only one saying that. Paul Polman, for instance, ex-CEO of Unilever, is saying this as well. Is this fundamental lack of empathy is causing a lot of our problems today. So climate change, war, political tensions, poverty, inequality, all of that is the root cause of that. At least one of the important root causes of that is a lack of empathy. Is that we don't care
Mm,
enough about other people, about nature, about our planet,
mm, mm,
and that's a very fundamental level where empathy in strategy is so important because in strategy you define what the future of your organization is. And it is about the interaction of your organization with the broader environment.
mm,
So if empathy is not your driver, you're probably starting from the wrong starting point in the first
mm,
place, because then you look at yourself at profit maximization and
yeah.
how can we win, how can we beat the competition. No, your I think your authentic drive should be look around you. Where there's a real need that we can address, that we can solve? Where are the real problems, and how can we resolve those? So that's
Mm,
empathy all over the place because it means putting yourself in someone else's perspective and understanding their problems and trying to come up with products and services that help resolving those problems. So that's I think the most important level, most strategic level also where empathy plays a role. There's several other places, and one is more again more the process side. What I see a lot in organizations is there are silos.
mm,
You have your marketing department, you have your production department, finance, you have HR, you have purchasing, and so on. They're silos. They barely speak with each other or only on a transactional basis
yeah.
where like a product or the process goes from one stage to another and from one department to another. What I try to do with with my participative approach is bring these people together in a room or virtually in a Zoom
Mm,
conversation like we're having now, and have them talk about their organization from their perspectives. And that creates an
mm,
understanding. Like sometimes it's the first time when someone from production, sales, and engineering uh, talk, speak with each other in the
mm,
same room about their organization from a
mm,
strategic perspective. And that is so important because it creates an understanding of the other person's and the other department's perspective. If you
mm,
understand, like if you're selling like basically everything to a customer and promise the customer everything, if you realize the problems that creates further down the line with engineering, with production,
mm,
is how they suffer
mm,
from you having
mm,
sold something that's
mm,
basically impossible or too
yeah.
expensive.
Mm,
That's empathy as well. It's this mutual
mm,
understanding of what others in the organization and even in the value chain
mm, mm.
further down to other organizations as well. So that's the first, I think, the two critical, most strategic ways in which I think empathy plays a role. There's probably
Yeah.
many more,
Mm,
but
yeah.
let me just
So
shut up
I'm
for a while.
I'm curious, like you talk about the people, you talk about the customer. Now, do you think we need to have the strategy to empathize the competitor also? What do you think? I'm just curiously asking this from a different
Oh
approach.
yes, yes. I think because competitors, you need them, and I think this is one of the misconceptions about strategy is that this is about beating the competition. And I
Mm,
understand it, and it comes from the parallels with the word strategy and war. And
mm,
the one of the stories, or one of the mostly fictional stories, is that the current business strategy, the current field of strategy, has its origins in war. So it's very popular to refer to Sun Tzu, for instance, and say,
Yeah.
okay, we have more than 2 millennia of history, so we're a very serious field. But that's cheating, because indeed, in war, it's about outperforming or beating the enemy, the competition, if you like. The history of business strategy is much shorter. It started in the 70s with courses at Harvard and in Philadelphia and at several of the business schools, where it wasn't even called strategy, it was business policy and planning. So that's the origins of business strategy. And then it's not anymore about beating the competition. It's about creating. I think that's an interesting quote by Peter Drucker. I think the main goal, I think, of every organization is creating a customer, creating a satisfied customer. And you need competitors for that, because if you're the only one selling a certain product or service, there is no market. And of course, I also understand sometimes there is a fight with your competition, but that should not be your primary focus. And even if uh, it is your primary focus, understanding the competitor, putting yourself in their shoes is critical, because it really helps you understand what you should be doing as an organization.
I think it helps the organizers to up the game also, right? Because we are in now position 3, where can we elevate ourselves, looking at it how the competitor is really trying to do that, enabling us to really benchmark ourselves, right?
Yeah, benchmark, but I think empathy is going beyond that. It's not just trying to put yourself in their shoes and kind of gather information and then outsmart them. Empathy also means kind of truly understand them, also their values and where they come from, and kind of sympathize with what they do, rather than trying to find their weak spots and then kill them.
Right. So, my next question is going to be really, I know it's pretty broad, but let's focus one or two areas. I want to hear from you. What are some of common pitfalls companies face when trying to turn strategic plan into reality or execution? And I want to hear how you can avoid, or how can we minimize them. Is there a specific tool you can recommend? So number one is common pitfalls when they execute the strategies. Number two, how to avoid them. Is there any tools we can use to avoid those pitfalls?
Of course, use my tools, and all your problems will be resolved. Now, on a more serious note, of course, the pitfalls, and I won't repeat those in detail, but I think the content part, not enough detail, and the process part, not enough participation. I think that are the big pitfalls. Yeah, and maybe one of the other pitfalls is maybe an unexpected one, is because there's this whole idea nowadays that strategy should be agile, adaptive, whatever word you use, because the world is in flux and is changing. We need to have a very adaptive and incremental and adaptive and iterative cyclical strategy. The biggest pitfall is that you go too far in that, because then you throw away the baby with the bathwater, because the whole idea of strategy is give you continuity, give you direction for a while, give you stability in a changing environment. And that's what I see is with the promotion of all these very short cycle approaches, that sometimes, and there's I think a growing group of people who would argue that you don't need a strategy in the first place. There's even books and articles saying execution is the strategy, or something along that line, which I think is nonsense, because then we're back at square one, because that's where the whole field of strategy started, as a response to ad hoc execution. And we don't want to end up with ad hoc execution. So we need to kind of find a good balance between, when do I stick to my plan? When am I changing? When am I pivoting? So I think the big pitfall there is go too far to the incremental side. Other pitfall that I'm just kind of what comes to my mind first. The other pitfall is seeing strategy as planning as the same thing, which it is not. And also there I've written a couple of posts on that. Strategy means getting your business logic clear. How do you create value? How do you capture value? How do you create a satisfied customer that pays you or that creates a revenue stream that makes your business viable. Planning starts with, okay, there's some objectives, some goals, and then how does it unfold over time? What kind of resources do we need, and so on. So planning and strategy are very different, and that's a pitfall where people kind of immediately jump into the planning box. They think, okay, we need a couple of objectives, and then we turn them into OKRs, OGSM, whatever, the X matrix, whatever tool. That's all planning. Before that, you need a solid understanding of your value creation logic, the value capturing logic, so your business logic as an organization. So that's, I think, another pitfall I see a lot. Yeah, tools you also asked about.
Yeah. So what are things we can use? I know you
Yeah,
have your own tools.
yeah, of course. And I publish a lot on tools. Some of them are mine. A lot of them are from others. Personally, in everything I do, in my consulting, my mentoring, my training, for me, if you have to pick a single tool, it would be the strategy sketch, which is the tool I developed based on in the past. I used the business model canvas. I think a lot of people are familiar with the business model canvas,
Yes.
where you have 9 elements of a business model on a sheet of paper. I've used that a lot, and then found out that, okay, it's good. It's great to have that on a single sheet, but it's incomplete. And when I compare what strategy is about and what's in the business model canvas, it was not enough. I always found myself, I need other models. I need to add elements. So I was dissatisfied with that model. And over time, I adapted it and created a new model, which is the strategy sketch. Like the first 6 versions were not good, as it goes, like with incremental development, but the final one, it's there for almost 10 years now, since 2015. So it's a stable model, and it has on a single sheet of paper the 10 core elements of strategy. And and it's so important that to have all elements of strategy in one model, because it means you can use a single model for creating an understanding of your current strategy, for evaluating it over time, because you monitor the 10 elements and how they change over time, for designing a new strategy. And you don't need kind of all kinds of other models. You can use them for, let's say, more in-depth analysis of the 10 elements, but you don't need them. So it helps you create the clarity part. So it resolves the content problem, but it also helps you manage the process part, because you have one model over time. And the point where I've made that clearest is in the 1-hour strategy book, where I have created a simplified version of the strategy sketch, which is the 6M model, which has it covers the same content, but then in 6 elements instead of 10. And the whole idea of the 1-hour strategy is that you can use one and the same model throughout your organization, throughout the process, because it helps manage, understand, and design strategy. And it's such a powerful tool, because it helps create this clarity and understanding. It facilitates dialogue, and you can even forget the whole word strategy, because you just look at the 10 elements, and then so clarity, that's customers, competitors, value proposition, competences, revenue model, organizational climate, values and goals, and so on. When you talk about those 10 and have clarity on those 10 and have alignment between those 10, I can't give you a guarantee that you will be doing great, but you significantly improve your chances.
I'm curious to know quickly, like just to ask that with that sketch, whatever the 10 components you said, does empathy come up anywhere?
Not as a separate
Inbuilt.
element, but it's
It's
embedded in.
inbuilt.
So the human aspect is embedded in many different ones. So one is on the customer side, of course, understanding the customer, understanding their needs, truly putting yourselves in their shoes. One is on the organizational climate part, where I think the organization's culture and structure is a very important part. The other is the values and goals part. What do we find important in this organization? Is it caring about each other? Is it empathy? Is it an interest in each other? Or is this a cold, clinical, profit-driven machine?
Got it.
So it's throughout.
So it's
And
inbuilt model with that whole sketch
yeah,
template
it's
piece.
more like an aspect that can probably you could probably link to all 10 elements if you
Super.
or at
Perfect.
least to the
Yeah.
majority of them.
Yeah. So the viewers who are watching and listeners who are listening in, if you want to get to more know about this sketch, which the model which Jeroen is speaking, I'm inviting. I'll put all the podcast notes on the links. Join the strategy circle. I'll share the
Mhm.
link on the chat. You will be able to experience amazing amount of content in terms of strategy. I think I'm making a note here. Please join because
Mhm.
I'm part of it. I'm learning a lot. I've gone through the model as well. So that's why I just want to
Good.
bring that particular part of it.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, thank you.
just we're coming into the end of the conversation. I'm just going to have a quick one. We
Hmm.
talked about strategy, we talked about the execution, the clarity is important. We talk about the empathy. Now, I'm just asking the role of a leadership to
Hmm.
create such a culture in the organization because it cannot just done at the top or it cannot just done on the middle layer. It should the whole culture need to like what sort of
Hmm.
a role can a leader play to create such a culture to enhance strategic execution?
Yeah, because you're very right. It starts with leaders. I would always say like if leaders, the most important, so that's probably let's say the top leaders, if they are not open to it's kind of approach that I've just described in the past minutes, then forget it.
Mm,
Go and move somewhere else. Find another company to work for. But at every level, and I think what leadership is very much about is don't hide behind what someone above you
mm,
has told you. Don't hide behind the rules. Just do it. Be kind of I kind of stimulate a bit of civil disobedience because if and I think it may not apply to every organization, but I think the large majority,
mm,
if you bend the rules a bit, if you kind of avoid the rules a bit, and you're effective, you show that
mm,
it works, you
mm,
will get more room and the
mm,
rules will
mm.
probably bend as well. And I
Yeah.
think what we see too much is a result of the old traditional
Mm,
factory model where the boss is telling you what to do and you
mm,
execute. So
mm.
basically, as mid-level managers and employees, we are all intelligent and intelligent adults. And when we go to our job, we basically kind of put over our hat and put it
Mm.
in the cabinet, and then we just execute what we're told to do.
Yeah.
No, in every job, you can be a leader and you can take the initiative. You can be proactive. That's also why, again, I'm probably repeating myself too often. Is this strategy sketch model? You can
Mm,
apply it at all levels. Even if you're an employee, even if you are a team
mm,
lead, you can look at your unit, your job, the part you are responsible for, and think about
mm,
how can I do better for our customers? What can I do in order to create better products? How can
mm,
I reduce the risks? How can I reduce costs? So having that strategic mindset within your own job, within your own role, I think that's what every leader should do. Don't worry about the entire company because that's not your responsibility, but within
mm,
your sphere of influence, your
mm.
department, the part of the work you are responsible for, put on your
Yeah.
strategic hat and
Hat.
behave more strategically there.
Absolutely. All right. So that's the time what we have. John, one key takeaway you want to give to our listeners and viewers. What do you think? One message you want to give?
Don't make it too complicated and just start. Strategy is just a word, I think, for the broader thinking and thinking of the big picture. It
Yeah.
it's not more than that.
Yeah. So that's a wrap of our discussion on the importance of strategy to the organization and their impact. Big thank you to our guest, Jeroen Kraaijenbrink, for sharing such valuable inside experience. It's clear that strategic planning and empathetic leadership are key drivers for success today's business world. If you would like to connect with Jeroen Kraaijenbrink and learn more of his expertise, you can follow him on his LinkedIn and his amazing content. Please do. And please log on to www.strategy.inc to explore some of his work, what he does. And I'm going to share the Strategy Circle link, which you have amazing learning platforms. Please join that as well. On that note, John, thank you very much for your valuable time. It has been amazing conversation. And thank you very much again to sharing your wisdom and your insight.
Thank you very much, and you're welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of EI Cafe with Azim. You can check out similar topics in episode 101, why your culture is critical for success, with Colin Ellis. Episode number 78, how to get the best out of your team, with Ishan Galampati. Episode 59, the seriousness of fun in business, with Dr. Linda Shaw. I hope these conversations helps you in your professional as well as personal life. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, stay inspired, striving for excellence. This is EI Cafe with Azim. And checking out from the cafe, my name is Azim Sahid.
Thank you for joining yet another successful episode of EI Cafe with Azim. We appreciate your time and invite you to subscribe to the show so that you don't miss out on the next episode. Write a review and even rate it if you please. You can also follow Azim Sahir on social media. We would also love to hear from you on what topics you'd like us to cover and even who you'd like us to invite to the show. We wish you well until we meet again on another episode of EI Cafe with Azim.